I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Hey guys, my name is Natalie and welcome to my channel. Today I've got a very interesting, real, creepy story. If you don't know me, I like to tell stories as well as just discuss all kinds of topics here. This is my second video in English, so please go ahead and watch the first one. I would appreciate, and thank you all for supporting me. As you can probably realize, this is a very big step for me. And also for my Russian speaking followers, the new video in Russian will be coming out this Sunday, hopefully. But again, I plan to make videos mostly in English. And just before getting started, I would like to tell you about my Instagram. I post stories every day, so if you want to know a bit more about my Parisian life, please go ahead and check it out. Also, just a little reminder that I tell all of these stories from the first person's view, as if they happened to me, even though in most cases they didn't. If you'd like to share your story, please leave it in the comments below. I read and try to answer to all the comments and messages. So let's start. I had just moved into a new apartment. It was a truly charming place in a lovely neighborhood. It was the perfect spot for the fresh start after ending a tumultuous relationship. The apartment was cozy, with just the right amount for me and my cat Luna. I was eager to settle in and begin this new chapter of my life. My neighbors also seemed very friendly and nice, always greeting me with a smile as I walked through the hallways. They seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, and I even felt a sort of community that I hadn't experienced in a long time. One day, as I was returning home from work, I found a note slipped under my door. It was an invitation to a welcome party that my neighbors were throwing for me. I was so touched by this gesture and actually excited to meet everyone in a more relaxed setting. I don't think anybody has ever done anything similar. Even my birthday parties and presents were smaller. Anyway, the night of the party arrived, and I made my way to the apartment next door with a bottle of wine in hand. As I stepped inside, I was greeted by warm smiles and friendly chatter. The apartment was filled with laughter, and I felt like I was generally a part of this close-knit community where everybody was friendly, and I felt like I was making new friends for life. I spent the whole evening chatting with my neighbors, sharing stories about our lives and getting to know one another. As the night wore on, I noticed something odd. Something was really strange. It was really bizarre. People seemed to be whispering amongst themselves, and I caught glimpses of furtive glances in my direction. I really tried to brush it off. I thought maybe that's just my imagination and the wine. Probably I was just paranoid for nothing. And as the party began to wind down, one of my neighbors, an older woman named Helen, she told me that she had something important to share with me. Something she felt I needed to know. I was intrigued and even slightly scared. So I followed her into a quiet corner in the apartment. She began by telling me that the building that I had moved into had a dark history, one that the other neighbors had tried to forget. Years ago, there's been a series of gruesome murders that took place in the exact apartment, in the very apartment that I now called my home. The victims were all young women, much like myself, who had been brutally killed by somebody unknown. Helen's words truly sent a chill down my spine, but I couldn't help but wonder why she was telling me this, because it kind of seemed like all the other people were trying to hide this. So she continued saying that the killer had never been caught, and that the other neighbors had come to believe that the apartment was curse. They believed that whoever lived there was destined to be the next victim. I felt a wave of fear wash over me, but I really tried to rationalize the situation. It was just a story after all, and the idea of cursed apartment seemed far-fetched. I was never a fan of creepy stories because I simply had trouble believing in them. I thanked Helen for her concern and left the party. When I returned to my apartment, I started feeling unease again. The following days were filled with a growing sense of paranoia. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, and every sound in the night seemed to echo with a sinister intent. I tried to put the story out of my mind, but at the point it was already impossible to ignore all the whispering and sidelong glances from my neighbors. One evening, I was returning home from work. I found my apartment door ajar. Panic instantly rose in my chest, and I hesitated before stepping inside. To my horror, I found my belongings scattered about and a message scrawled on the wall in red: "You're next." Saying that I was terrified wouldn't mean much. I turned to my neighbors for help, but instead of comfort and support that I had hoped for, I was met with cold indifference. It was as if they had already accepted my fate and tried to distance themselves from me. I couldn't understand how come these people who are so friendly, nice to me, all of a sudden become indifferent. Desperate, I went to the police, but they also dismissed all of my concerns, suggesting that most likely it was just a prank by someone in the building. I felt isolated and trapped, unsure of what to do next. I knew I couldn't continue living in fear. Besides, it's not like I had money to move out of this apartment. So I resolved to confront the situation head on. I decided to dig deeper into the story of the apartment, hoping to find some clue that would help me unravel the mystery, or at least to get some truthful information. I spent my evenings researching at the local library and combing through newspaper archives. The story turned out to be true, but I also discovered that each victim had been found with a small, intricate carving of an animal placed next to their body, a twisted calling card left by the killer. I found that each of these carvings had been traced back to a local craftsman who had disappeared shortly after the last case. With this newfound information, I felt a renewed sense of determination. So I told everything to Helen, also asking her about the craftsman and whether she had known him. And her reaction was really unexpected. Her eyes all of a sudden widened with fear, and she quickly ushered me into her apartment. In hushed tones, she admitted that the craftsman had been her brother. Helen explained that her brother had become obsessed with a series of ancient rituals. He believed that they would grant him immortality. He had began carving the small animal figurines as a means of harvesting the power of these rituals. And when those cases began, she suspected that her brother was somehow involved, but she could never bring herself to confront him or report him to the police. After the last case, her brother disappeared without a trace, leaving Helen to grapple with the grief and terror of his actions. And the thing is that the other neighbors had discovered the truth as well, but they all agreed to keep the secret, believing that the curse would die with the craftsman. I was truly horrified by Helen's story and this whole revelation. And I couldn't understand how the neighbors could stand idly by, knowing that the killer was in their midst. I knew I couldn't remain in my apartment any longer, but I also couldn't allow the craftsman legacy to continue haunting the building. So I devised a plan to cleanse the apartment of its dark past. With Helen's help, we gathered all the remaining animal carvings that her brother had left behind, and even performed a purification ritual in my apartment. It was more of a symbolic gesture, but I also hoped that it would probably break the cycle of fear and death. And as the ritual was complete, even I felt a strange feeling of peace. The whole atmosphere seemed to be lighter, and even my cat was more at ease. Nonetheless, I had to make the decision to move out, knowing that I will never ever feel safe in that apartment. I packed all of my belongings. My neighbors watched me from their doorways, and their expressions, it was a mixture of relief and sadness. They knew that they kept this secret for too long. I truly hope that this nightmare is over now. But now I'm also into therapy. Well, that's the story, guys. It does sound almost like a script for a horror movie. I remember once when I lived in Ukraine, I discovered that in my apartment somebody died, and I made a whole story about this because I think somehow I heard from somebody that the woman who lived there also was killed. But let's leave this to another story. Luckily, nothing bad really happened to this girl from today's story. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like if you liked and enjoyed. Leave a comment down below, please. I would appreciate that so much. And thank you again for all of your support. Guys, video in Russian is also coming out soon. And I'm working on a huge video. I've actually finally started working on it, and guys, it's a lot of work, and I hope you like it. Have a lovely rest of a day, evening, day, morning, night. Bye bye. I really love you, and see you on my Instagram and very soon on YouTube. Bye bye.